Good afternoon. I hereby call the special meeting of the Administrative Appeals Board of September 17th, 2025 to order. Board Secretary, can you please conduct the roll call?
Board Member Hein. Board Member Llewellyn. Board Member Corinne. Vice Chair Parker.
Here.
And Chair Basili.
Here.
5-member present.
Great. Next item on the agenda, the board can discuss and may amend the order of the agenda. I would like to entertain a motion and a second for acceptance of the agenda. Can I get a motion, please? Can I get a second? Okay. Board Secretary, can you please take the vote?
Board Member Corinne. Aye. Board Member Hein.
Aye.
Board Member Llewellyn. Vice Chair Parker.
Aye.
Chair Basili.
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
Great, thank you. Next section is public comment. The next item for public comment this time has been set aside for members of the public to address the board on items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. 3 minutes will be assigned to each speaker. Although the board values your comments pursuant to the Brown Act, the board generally cannot take any action on items not listed on the posted agenda. Testimony for the hearings will only be taken at the time of the hearing. Board Secretary, please begin the public comment period.
We do not have any public commenters signed up to speak. Anybody on Zoom, please raise your hand. No one raise their hand.
No one raised hand. Okay. So the next item, number 4, concerning the property at 3395 North Indian Canyon Drive. It is an appeal of the $5,000 fine. However, the owner has requested to postpone the appeal hearing to our next meeting in October. Board Secretary, you said no one was on Zoom?
It does appear that I have possibly Stephen and Sam in regards to this appeal hearing on Zoom. They advised that they weren't going to be available. I can promote them so they're able to speak if we have questions before we make the decision.
Okay. I'll put this out to the board. We need to make a motion whether or not we'd like to postpone this or hear this.
I thought she said they were on. They're on or they're not? Sorry, I misunderstood.
She's checking.
Yes, they both are logged into Zoom. They had advised that they weren't going to be available, so and they did email and ask if they could postpone it to October. Okay. I advised that it's on the agenda, so the board has to make the decision, and that if you guys decided not to, that the appeal would still go forward. So they were going to join just in case.
Okay. So I'll put it out to the board. If I can get a motion whether or not you'd like to appeal, would you like to postpone it, or you'd like to hear today?
I don't have strong feelings about it, but I'm happy to move that we postpone that item on the agenda until the next meeting.
Okay, so can you make a motion on that?
That's so moved.
I'll second that.
Okay, Board Secretary, would you take the,
Board Member Hein.
Aye.
Vice Chair Parker.
Aye.
Board Member Llewellyn. Board Member Corinne.
Aye.
And Chair Basili.
Aye.
Passes 5-0 for this item to be on the October meeting.
Great, thank you. The next item, number 5, concerning the property at 3112 Cambridge Street North. It is an appeal of a $500 fine and administrative decision for a 2-year suspension of the vacation rental registration certificate. Board Secretary, can you please ensure that the city staff and the appellant understand that the testimony is under oath?
We do have signed affidavits from the city staff, and I believe the appellant is online. Anyone on Zoom who desires to testify under this appeal hearing, under the laws of perjury, if you choose to speak, you hereby accept and acknowledge that your testimony shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Great, thank you. Could we please now have the presentation from the city staff, please?
Yes, good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, board members. My name is Patrick Clifford with the Department of Special Program Compliance, and we oversee the vacation rental program here in the city of Palm Springs. Before you is a staff report regarding administrative citation A8879 issued in the amount of $500, along with the resulting 2-year suspension of the vacation rental registration certificate 045092 for the property located at 3112 Cambridge Court North in Palm Springs. This suspension was imposed under Palm Springs Municipal Code provisions that mandate a 2-year penalty after 3 violations occur within a 12-month period. In this case, the violations include 2 instances where music was found to be audible beyond the property line, and a 3rd instance in which the property owner and local contact failed to respond as required when enforcement officers attempted to reach them. Additionally, you will notice in your staff report that 3 additional citations were issued after the suspension period, 2 for music and 1 for operating without a certificate. The code officer that investigated the property is here available to give further information related to the 3rd administrative citation, and I'd like to invite the code officer to present his findings. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board, my fellow city staff, and members of the public present for this evening's hearing. My name is Jesse Grijalva, and I'm a Code Compliance Officer with the City of Palm Springs. On Thursday, May 15, 2025, while serving as a primary on-call vacation rental enforcement officer for the city, I received a notification from our vacation rental hotline, dispatch center at 7:24 p.m. regarding an active disturbance for loud music occurring at 3112 Cambridge Court North. Accompanied by Officer Guerrero, who responded with me as secondary officer, we arrived to the reported address at 7:34 p.m. We conducted our observation from the reporting party's property, which shares a property line with the subject vacation rental to the west, and a violation for music heard beyond the property line was observed. We then drove back around to the front of the subject property and contacted the occupants at the front door. I spoke with the responsible renter, Henry, and briefly discussed the complaint received and observed violation. They admitted to playing music, but it argued that it was not a violation, stating that it was at a low volume and not loud. I provided him with a copy of the Good Neighbor brochure and further educated him and his guests on the rules for music and noise. They continued to be argumentative, and when I requested that they provide their government-issued ID so I could issue the citation, they were uncooperative and refused to provide it. We then stepped away from the front door and attempted to make contact with the listed local contact via phone to request that they respond and assist with gaining the compliance of the renters. The first call was unsuccessful, with the message stating that the number was not in service. After reconfirming the number listed on our records for this property was correctly dialed, I made a second attempt and received the same message about the number not being in service. After those failed attempts, I retrieved the phone number for the property owner, Shuggy Flores, and attempted to call her. Similarly, I received an error message stating that the call cannot be completed, indicating that the number was disconnected. I made a second attempted call that was also unsuccessful. Having failed to get the assistance from either the owner or the local contact, Officer Guerrero and I reapproached the front door to speak with the renters. After a lengthy engagement, we were able to successfully reason with them to gain the cooperation of the responsible renter, who ultimately complied with me with their ID so I could issue the citation for music heard beyond the property line. Subsequently, upon returning to my workstation, I issued the property owner citation A8879 for failure to respond. Our vacation rental ordinance requires that the owner, his or her agent, and or the local contact person designated by the owner be available 24 hours per day, 7 days per week during the rental term of each vacation rental unit is rented for the purpose of responding by telephone within 15 minutes and or responding in person within 30 minutes. After being contacted by the enforcement official to complaints regarding to the condition, operation, or conduct of occupants of the vacation rental, PSMC 5.25070 subsection J specifically states that, quote, failure of the owner or his or her agent to respond to calls or complaints regarding the condition, operation, or conduct of occupants of the vacation rental in a timely and appropriate manner shall be grounds for imposition of penalties, end quote. I did not receive a response from the property owner, Shuggy Flores, until May 30th, 2025, which was a reply via email to a follow-up message I had sent her on May 16, 2025, notifying her of the interaction I had with her guests and the issues that I had with both the listed phone numbers on file for herself and her local contact. It should also be noted that there have been 3 further citations after the fact. Citation A8883 on June 7, 2025, music beyond the property line. Citation A8888 on July 4th, 2025, music beyond the property line, and administration citation AB0774 on July 4th, operating without a vacation rental certificate. The property located at 3112 Cambridge Court is currently under suspension effective June 23, 2025, and has been found operating in violation of that suspension. I was able to confirm this by reviewing an Airbnb booking provided by the responsible guest at the time, Amin. Amin also showed PSPD officers a text thread between him and the local contact. In the text thread, it was seen that the local contact advised Amin to tell us that he was a friend and not renting the property short-term. That will conclude my testimony, and I'm available to answer any questions the board may have. I'll hand it back to Patrick. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions from the board for the city staff?
I have a question, Jesse. I noticed in the report, I think the first citation for the noise issue was paid. The second citation, was that ever paid?
I cannot confirm, Patrick.
You know, I can look that up, but I have no record of that one being paid right now.
Okay.
But I cannot confirm yes or no.
Okay. And then maybe this is for you, Patrick. When did I noticed the violation for the operating without a certificate was issued on July 4th, 25. When did that certificate expire?
So the certificate didn't expire. The certificate was under suspension
Because of the previous violations?
because of the
Okay.
3 violations within a 12-month period.
Got it. Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Jesse, and I missed this detail from your testimony, but how much time passed? I understand you were unable to reach the record owner of the property by telephone. Ultimately, you reached her by email, correct?
So the violation of the music occurred on May 15th. I sent her an email on May 16th advising her of the reported violation and disturbance, and I didn't receive a response until May 30th. So,
May 30th?
May 30th.
Okay, thank you. No more questions for me.
Any other questions from the board?
I do have one other question, sorry. I think in the report, it made mention that after you couldn't get a hold of them for a while, something about going around the block and there was another address on Beverly Drive or something.
So that was the reporting party's address. So I took my observations from that property, and they share a property line.
Oh, I gotcha. So that's where you heard the music and then
Correct.
went around. Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there's no more questions, then at this time, I would like to open the appeal hearing. The appellant is invited to speak to up to 10 minutes. Any members of the public who desire to speak at this appeal hearing shall have up to 3 minutes to speak. If any member of the public does testify, the appellant will be invited to provide a rebuttal for up to 2 additional minutes. Is the appellant here?
The appellant is not here, and they did not advise me that they were going to be on Zoom, and they're not on Zoom right now.
Okay, all right. So then, Board Secretary, are there any public comments?
There is no public commenters.
Okay. Then we will now close the public hearing, and next I'll open it up for discussion and any additional questions from the board. I'll go first.
There's nobody to question.
There's no one to question, exactly. So I'm pretty clear on this violation, and I think we should move forward with the suspension and the fine. I make a motion that we move forward with the suspension and the fine, the 2-year suspension and the $500 fine.
I would agree with you guys. I think there's a couple things that bothered me in their appeal, the writing of their appeal, where they said that they were monitoring the property remotely for the noise. So I'm thinking, well, if you're monitoring remotely, why did it take the several violations before? Why was it this person proactive versus the citations, the citation officer? But anyway, I agree. I would third that motion.
Right, okay. So, Board Secretary, can you take the vote, please?
I'm sorry, the second was by Board Member Corinne or Llewellyn?
Who, well,
Who
one
made the second?
one person, please.
Yeah, we have to have a second. Okay. Sorry, Chair Basili?
Aye.
Board Member Corinne? Board Member Hein?
Aye.
Board Member Llewellyn? And Vice Chair Parker.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0 to adopt the resolution upholding the administrative decision.
Thank you. Next item is item number 6 concerning the property at 515 North Burton Way. It's an appeal of a $500 fine and administrative decision for a 2-year suspension of the vacation rental registration certificate. Board Secretary, could you please ensure that the city staff and the appellant understand that the testimony is under oath?
We do have signed affidavits from city staff, and the appellant is also in person. Anyone on Zoom who desires to testify under this appeal hearing, under the laws of perjury, if you choose to speak, you hereby accept and acknowledge that your testimony shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Okay. Staff, could you please present your report?
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, Board members. My name is Patrick Clifford with Department of Special Program Compliance, and we oversee the vacation rental program here in the city of Palm Springs. Before you this afternoon is a staff report related to administrative citation A8371 issued in the amount of $500, along with the resulting 2-year suspension of the vacation rental registration certificate 068053 for the property located at 515 North Burton Way, Palm Springs. This suspension was imposed under Palm Springs Municipal Code provisions requiring a 2-year suspension after 3 violations occur in a 12-month period. In this case, the violations consist of 1 citation for failing to include the city ID number on the vacation rental advertisement, 1 citation for music audible at the property line, and a 3rd citation for failure of the local representative to respond as required when enforcement officers attempted to make contact. Additionally, I'd like to point out that in the appeal docs received that there were point outs that our code compliance team requested or asked an eviction of the guests at the property. Just in case the board has questions relating that, our department does not ask our code officers to request or demand eviction of guests at a vacation rental property. That is solely a choice of the owner or the representative, and we're available for questions if any questions come up at that time. That does conclude my introduction. The code officer that investigated the property is here to provide further detail of what led to the issuance of the 3rd citation. I'd like to offer the code officer to the front to provide testimony. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board, fellow city staff, and members of the public present for this afternoon's hearing. My name is Jason Whitaker. I'm a code compliance officer for the city of Palm Springs. On Monday, April 22nd, 2025, at 5:36 a.m., the Department of Special Programs compliance staff received an email from the Palm Springs Police Department dispatch reporting 2 separate citizen complaints of loud music and partying, as was described by the reporting party, at the residence located at 515 North Burton Way. One at approximately 4:12 a.m. and another at 5:26 a.m. As the on-call vacation rental enforcement officer, once my shift began at 6:30 a.m., I responded to the location along with Code Compliance Officer Arwell Bermudo, and I arrived at the property at 6:38 a.m. Upon our arrival, we confirmed that music was still audible from the backyard while standing at the street along the property line. We made several attempts to contact the occupants at the front door by ringing and doorbell knocking on the door, but no response was received. At 6:46 a.m., I called the listed property management company, Ratherby Properties, and spoke with Kate. I informed her of the complaint and the observed violation and asked her to contact the responsible renter to come to the door so that I could issue a citation. After receiving no response from Kate or from the guest, I called Ratherby Properties back again at 6:57 a.m. and requested that someone from their agency come in person to the property to contact the guest. Pursuant to PSMC 5.25.070E, the owner, his or her agent, and/or the local contact person designated by the owner be available 24 hours per day, 7 days per week. During the rental term, each vacation rental unit is rented for the purpose of responding by telephone within 15 minutes and/or responding in person within 30 minutes after being contacted by the enforcement official to complaints regarding the condition, operation, or conduct of occupants of the vacation rental. Kate stated someone would arrive in person within 15 minutes to assist. At 7:26 a.m., having still been unsuccessful with getting the attention of the renters, and approximately 29 minutes after my request for in-person assistance, I placed a third call to the local contact, but there was no answer and it went to voicemail. Because Rather Be Properties failed to respond, I left the property and returned to my workstation to prepare the administrative citation and notice of violation against the renter responsible for the music disturbance. At 7:44 a.m., I spoke with Al, the owner of Rather Be Properties. I explained the unsuccessful attempts by his agency and requested the primary renter's ID so that the citation could be issued and sent via mail to them for the violation of the music heard beyond property line violation. At 9:38 a.m., I was notified by the Palm Springs Police Department Dispatch Center that patrol officers were out at the vacation rental property along with a representative from Rather Be Properties and were requesting my presence. I arrived back at the property at 9:50 a.m., at which time I discovered that patrol officers had gained entry and contacted the guests. A police officer provided the renter's ID so that I could issue the citation, which I had previously requested from Rather Be Properties, but had yet to receive from them. Also, for reference, a copy of the Palm Springs Police Department dispatch event record was provided to the board prior to the start of this afternoon's hearing. As a result of the above, I issued administrative citation number A8371 to the property owner on title Karine Vu Kwok for violation of PSMC 5.25.070J, which states failure of the owner or his or her agent to respond to calls or complaints regarding the condition, operation, or conduct of occupants of the vacation rental in a timely and appropriate manner shall be grounds for imposition or penalties as set forth in this chapter. It is not intended that an owner, agent, or local contact person act as a peace officer or place himself or herself in an at-risk situation. So this concludes my testimony. I will hand it back over to Patrick, and I'm also available for any questions that you may have for me.
Thank you. Is there any questions for the city staff?
I have some. Hi, Jason.
Hi.
If I'm reading the police department record correctly, would it be a correct assumption that they were summoned by Rather Be Properties to evict the tenant?
Correct.
Okay. And one other question, maybe you know or Patrick knows. I know this has come up before. Does Airbnb now require permit numbers to be posted on their ads? Do we know that?
If it's a requirement by Airbnb,
Yes.
I don't have the answer to that question. I know it's a city short-term vacation rental ordinance.
Right.
It's part of the ordinance, but
Yeah,
I
I
can
was just
defer
curious
that to
if we knew
Patrick.
if any of the vacation rentals do.
Correct. Yeah, Airbnb does not have a requirement that they must have the city ID in there. They have the option to put it in there, but it's not a requirement.
It's not a
for
requirement.
publishment.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a question. How long has this property been a short-term rental?
I defer that to Patrick, sorry.
Yes, and let me just go to the top of the staff report. I believe I have it when they started. One moment. Sure. This property has been a vacation rental since November 15th, 2022.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions from the board? Okay. At this time, I'd like to open the appeal hearing. The appellant is invited to speak for up to 10 minutes. Any members of the public who desire to speak on this appeal hearing shall have up to 3 minutes to speak. If any member of the public testifies, the appellant will be invited to provide a rebuttal for up to 2 additional minutes. Is the appellant here? Could you please come up to the mic? Please state your name.
My name is Al Setagravish with Ratherby Properties.
Okay, your 10 minutes will start now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I want to start by saying that I take the city's vacation rental ordinance very seriously. As a property manager, I understand the responsibility we have to comply, and I accept the responsibility for the violations that occurred. My purpose here today is not to avoid consequences, but to ensure they are consistent with how the ordinance is written. In this case, the first violation we received was for advertising without including our city registration ID. When I reviewed the ordinance in depth, I found that this type of violation is handled under a very specific section, Section 52590D. That section clearly states that the penalty for the first offense is a $2,500 fine and a 6-month suspension, and for a second offense, revocation. Instead of that penalty, the city issued only a $500 fine and then later counted that citation toward 3 violations in 12 months rule, which resulted in a mandatory 2-year suspension. In effect, the same violation was punished twice, once as a fine and again as a strike triggering the 2-year suspension. What I'm asking today is for the city to treat the first violation the way the ordinance prescribes. That would mean reclassifying it under Section 52590D, applying the correct $2,500 fine with a 6-month suspension. This outcome is consistent with the law, avoids double counting, and still carries meaningful consequences. I also believe that this is a fair and balanced solution for both sides. The city collects the higher fine it should have, the property faces a 6-month suspension, and we walk away knowing the ordinance is being applied as intended. I also want to assure you that as a manager of multiple properties, I've already taken steps to ensure this lesson is carried forward and that all our homes stay in compliance, and I would like to share with you a few steps we have taken to prevent this issue from arising in the future. We have terminated our prior local contact that was unable to fulfill the duties required, and I've since hired a team to be able to be our primary local contacts, which I've updated with the city recently. I would like to also mention that the local contact did arrive, but he arrived at 42 minutes, not within the 30-minute time window. The evidence that I provided yesterday shows text message threads, both text message and phone call threads of us communicating with the guest at the time of the incident. We attempted calling her almost 2 handfuls of times while the incident took place. Myself and my team member, Kate, were both in communication with code compliance at the time, and we were both attempting to reach the guest. I also included message threads of our property management software communication with the guest, notifying them that code enforcement was outside, that they wanted to issue them a citation because of audible music. None of those phone calls by the guests were answered. We called them 8 times in a matter of probably 20 minutes, and I provided evidence to show that the call logs. I also provided evidence to show that our local contact did arrive on scene, did not arrive in the 30 minutes, and I accept responsibility for that. However, he did arrive within 42 minutes. We did proceed with the eviction, and Palm Springs Police Department was able to help us. We gained access into the property without Palm Springs Police Department, but they were there to support our local contact because the guests were being pretty combative. They were also intoxicated. I will add that we have very strict house rules. We do not allow parties. We do not allow amplified music. We have signage throughout the property. We provide good neighbor brochure to the guests at the time of booking, at the time of check-in, and then it's also available on the digital guidebook that we provide to guests. We have since also tightened up our guest screening processes for all of our properties to ensure that guests are crystal clear that we do not allow for parties of any kind. I also would like to address one thing regarding the guest's identification, driver's license. We were attempting to extract the driver's license. We have a check-in process with our guests, a virtual check-in process where they upload the driver's license, sign a rental agreement, everything. And it was a tech issue actually extracting that identification from our system, which is why I wasn't able to email it to code enforcement within the hour that they requested. But I did provide it to them within 3 hours of the very first phone call that we received. And I do have email confirmation of that as well. We have added additional signage to ensure that the message is clear to guests the city rules and ordinances. And we've gone through all of our listings in depth to ensure all city IDs are present. And I'd also like to mention that the evidence I provided yesterday was primarily to document our attempts. At the end of the day, we respect the city's ordinances, and we want to make sure that we're doing business properly within the city. And so what happened in the case back in April, when we received the 2 violations, it was not for a lack of effort. We put all hands on deck to try to resolve the issue amicably. We followed suit to what code enforcement was asking us to do at the time. We did not arrive in 30 minutes, and again, I accept responsibility for that, but again, it was not for a lack of effort. I will also mention that the phone calls that we received from code enforcement were from an unknown number. And so I have record of us trying to call code enforcement back in that communication that the code compliance officer just mentioned. We were attempting to contact them and stay in communication with them, but they contacted us from an unknown number, and so we're unable to call them back. And so at the end, I'm respectfully requesting that the 2-year suspension be reduced to 6 months and the fine be adjusted to $2,500 in alignment with the ordinance. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. Board Secretary, are there any commenters?
No public commenters.
Okay. Then we'll close the public hearing, and next we'll open it up for discussion or additional questions from the board. Any questions from the board for the appellant?
Of course, I have something. Al, thank you for your transparency, your testimony, and your sort of your chronological order of how you guys handled things. I think we all appreciate that. Just a question: the failure to post the ID violation, which I understand was last year in November, did you guys appeal that?
Did not appeal it.
Okay. Did you pay the fine?
I did pay the fine.
Okay.
I paid all the fines.
Okay. And then I think in your materials, at the subject property, there was an illustration of a noise monitoring device on the back patio.
Yeah.
I'm just curious why the owner of the property or you guys didn't sort of attack this first before code enforcement got involved.
Thank you for asking that. We use a noise monitoring device at a lot of our properties through Minute, and Minute has notifications that come through. We have a history of the notifications. We have the history of the noise decibel levels. And we also have a additional subscription with Minute, which I can provide evidence of, where we pay them for the additional call service. So they contact the guests on the first notification via a message through Airbnb. They do the same thing on a second, and by the third, there's a 24/7 call center that contacts them. The issue that we've had, and this has been a consistent issue with Minute, and we've been addressing this for 4 months now, back and forth with their development team. The wind, as we know in Palm Springs, is very heavy. We've had a lot of cases, and I can document on multiple properties where we've had the wind set the noise decibel levels off,
Activating the device.
activating it, and guests are getting auto responses. And so we've had to adjust the levels up. So I've read the noise ordinance, and I know what the decibel levels are allowed based off the time of day. Just sharing some information based off of boots on the ground experience. The decibel levels of that reading and a noise monitoring device, given the wind levels in Palm Springs, if we drop it to that level, wind will consistently trigger. And that's been the case. That's been the case while our cleaners are there. That's been the case while the property is completely vacant. And that's been the case where guests are at the property, and we have cameras throughout the properties, and we can monitor what they're doing. So we get a noise decibel reading, or we get a call from code compliance. The first thing we do is we go to the cameras and we see what's going on. We're looking to gather evidence both for our sake, and if we need to evict the guests, we have to provide evidence to Airbnb. And there's been 90% of the time that decibel level has gone off on multiple properties, it has been a false reading.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I don't have any other questions.
Any other questions from the board?
To respond timely, assuming the board and the city attorney, the city accepts your interpretation of the first violation. Are you contesting that? Are you planning to contest the third violation of failure to respond?
Well, I'm very transparent, as Vice Chair had mentioned. I read the ordinance front to back multiple times, and it's clear that we need to respond within 30 minutes. We failed to respond within 30 minutes. However, we did respond, and our local contact arrived in 42 minutes. What I can assure you of is that moving forward, that's a non-issue. We have released that individual, and we've hired a team to be able to do this. And so I'm not directly appealing that because we did not respond in 30 minutes.
Thank you. And secondly, and this is a question both for you and for the city attorney, you now say that you believe the first violation was improperly cited, punished, and you want to, I assume, somehow go back in time, take back your $500, and start that process again. It is conceivable to me legally, you've waived the right to object now, that it should have been a different form of punishment because you've already accepted it and paid. Have you researched that? Does the city attorney have advice for the board on that? Whether or not you can even make the argument you're making about citation 1 at this time? Or have you waived the right to contest how that was done?
I will mention that I'm not appealing the first citation that we received, but rather I'm appealing the suspension as it's written in the ordinances. And so I'm asking for the first citation that we received to follow the ordinances, which is a mandatory 6-month suspension and a $2,500 fine, because the ordinances aren't clear. It's contradicting on the violations. So going through the violations section, there's a whole slew of violations that fall under the category of 3 that for a 24-month suspension, but there's very specific language about violations that pertain to posting city ID, guest contracts, and whatnot. And so as I dive into it, it's pretty clear that they're 2 different punishable paths, I should say. So that's what I'm appealing. I
So
won't speak for the city attorney, though.
if, in a perfect world, if we were able to give you that 6-month suspension, you were still you were in violation of that 6-month suspension because on April 22nd, you got a citation for music, and then also failure to respond. So you were operating, you were already operating beyond the violation, your 6-month suspension. Because you were violating it within 5 months, and if you had a 6-month suspension, you were already violating it in April. So just wanted to bring that point up. But did you want to get a response back from the city attorney?
Yes, please.
Board member, and can you clarify on what the question is exactly, whether it's if they violated, whether it even matters, right? Just please clarify your question.
Well, I guess there are 2 questions. The appellant has seemed to say he doesn't believe violation 1 can count as one of towards the 3 as a matter of law. That type of violation can't count. Secondly, assuming it can count, I believe the appellant say he believes there should have been a different punishment for that crime that was not imposed at the time. He paid his fine. He moved ahead under the way the city proceeded. Can he now try to say do-over on violation 1, or has he waived the time and right to object to the city's process on the failure to register? So there are 2 separate but somewhat related questions the appellant raised.
Well, first, I'm going to defer to city staff on whether they have a comment on that first, and then I can give my point on that. However, I believe the municipal code is pretty clear. I don't think it's vague in its violation process. I mean, it's written in a way so that it protects the city. So it's written in that way on purpose. Just want to mention that.
Yes, thank you, Council. And also just to clarify whether with respect of when that violation occurred and what type of violation it was, that's still a violation of the ordinance. And so, for example, with the violations for the other sections, or the similar section with contract summaries, Previous cases we have brought forward to the board as well include that contract summary violation counting as one strike to the vacation rental certificate. So whether the violation occurred in sections across the ordinance or it's just detailed in respect with the violations, that would have still been in this case, if it was issued as what Section D says in the violation section, it would have been the first citation, failure to post city ID, fine amount $2,500, 6-month suspension, and that would have been one strike to the certificate. If that, hopes that clears the question up.
Yeah, I agree with that. So there wouldn't be a do-over if that's what it was.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you for your time, appreciate it.
Thank
Okay,
you.
can we have a discussion among the board? Any comments before we make a motion?
I'll start. This is one of those cases, and they're all difficult to some degree, but I think we have a reasonably conscientious operator here. But we have 3 pretty clear violations. And the good faith of the operator or the homeowner is not at issue in these cases. This is a strict liability ordinance. And for better or for worse, good intentions and good faith don't change the fact that there have been 3 violations. So that's kind of how I see this. I have some sympathy for the appellant, but it doesn't change what happened, and I would be in favor of upholding the citation.
I think I would echo your comments and your feelings. And Board Member Llewellyn, I appreciated your question to the city about the first violation, and I think city brings up a good point. Regardless how much the fine was, it still was a violation that counts against the 3 in the calendar in the time frame. I would agree.
Okay, so can we put a motion out there?
I'll move that we uphold the, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong line. Hold on.
$500 fine and 2-year suspension.
Thank you. The $500 fine and 2-year suspension.
Can I get a second, please? Board Secretary, can you take the vote, please?
Vice Chair Parker,
Aye.
Board Member Corinne. Aye. Board Member Hein,
Aye.
Board Member Llewellyn,
Aye.
and Chair Basili.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0 to adopt the resolution upholding the administrative decision.
Thank you. The city will be in contact with you regarding the fine. Thank you so much. Okay. This portion of the meeting now is set aside for general comments, announcements, requests of the staff, and our other issues of concern from members of the Administrative Appeals Board. We have any comments? Okay. It's an easy board today. Okay. All right, the next section this time is set aside for the city attorney to update the board on important matters initiated by the staff or previously requested by the board. Can we get an update from the city attorney?
Yeah, thank you for having me today, board. I'm sitting in for one of the other BBK attorneys, and we have nothing to report at the time, but thank you.
Okay, thanks so much. Okay, can you please announce the next meeting?
Nothing from the clerk's office. It is October 15th at 2 p.m. in the count. I should be back in the large conference room, I believe. I'll let
Okay.
you know.
Great, thank you. This time is 2:43 p.m. and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.